Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us for this weekend edition of Hebrew Word Study. We are in 2 Samuel chapter 6 and picking up with verse 5. And it's been a few weeks, so let me give you a quick recap here. This is concerning the Ark of the Covenant that David was wanting to bring back to Jerusalem. And so it had been outside of the realm of Israel because if you remember way back, the sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, had taken it into battle against the Philistines. It became captured, and from there it made kind of a circuit, out of the Philistine realm because they were smitten with plagues for having had the ark in their midst. It then abode in a household of Abinadab, and so now it's on its way back. And David is happy. I remember from the last chapter portion we read that there were 30,000 select people, men, it says, that were chosen to be part of this activity, this festivity, if you will, of bringing the ark back. And again, we're going to see this is a very disturbing time. Those of you that read the story ahead of time know that one of the guys reaches out, touches the ark when the cart with the cattle pulling it seems to stumble, and the Lord strikes him down. And there's many theories on why this all happened. And to me, it's just I don't know. With this blessed ability to look into the Hebrew words, I thought, well, maybe let's see if we can look for something a little different. And just see, what some of the Hebrew words will tell us. So with that set up, we're going to look at verses 5 and 6 today. And what we notice here in verse 5 strikes me as really strange to start out with. Remember, there are 30,000 people who are gathered together at the direction of King David to have a party. And what's interesting is in verse 5, it mentions all the instruments. So it starts out David, Vechol Beit Yisrael, and all the house of Israel. Meshachakim, music was came before Lifnei Yahweh. So they're playing this music in their minds, and it's in the presence of Yahweh. So again, being cognizant here where it shows us the names used to describe God at this point. And I think that's somewhat significant. So here, this is music being played in the presence of Yahweh, which is appealing to the um, benevolent, merciful aspect of God. And then Bechol, all kinds. And is where it gets interesting. Say instruments of wood, all kinds of wood. Beroshim mentions the wood, and it mentions, bechinot, the harps. Uvin balim, other kinds of instruments, uvi tushim, tambourines. It mentions uvim naim, translated as sistrums, and then betzetzelim are the cymbals. And so just trying to picture this, 30,000 people um, having a party basically with all these kinds of instrumental music. And I'm wondering, why does the Bible take the time to mention all these various instruments? Um, jump with me ahead to, obviously we know the story. We know that Uzzah is struck down. Time frame goes on. David finally regroups and then brings the ark eventually back into Israel. Obviously, then they don't put it on a cart, they carry it. But what I want to look at is verse 15. If we jump ahead there, I saw something that I hadn't noticed before. And so David is bringing the ark. He's dancing before the ark, and that we'll get to that. But notice at the end of verse 15, the only instrument mentioned is the sound of the trumpet. The 30,000 people are not mentioned. All the other instruments are not mentioned. Things have become quite simplified. And I think there's a clue here as to something that was going on in verse 5 with 30,000 people and all these instruments. And now, when David finally is successful in bringing the ark back, we see he's got a trumpet. One trumpet, that's out. And it doesn't say they played a great medley. It says the sound of the trumpet, the sound of the shofar. And so this isn't even a trumpet, again, trumpet is sort of a bad translation. It's not a metal instrument with, buttons or anything. This is a shofar. This is a ram's horn. This is the sound of a ram's horn being blown. And there are a number of YouTube videos you can go to showing how that's was done and still is being done in many realms of worship in Hebrew culture. So things have gotten simplified from what David was intending here. All these instruments, all these people, all the fanfare, and I'm sure his heart was, in the right place, if you will. He was a man after God's own heart, definitely trying to do the right thing, playing before God. But it seems like he was definitely trying to do his own thing. And it seems by the time they get to verse 15, everything has been simplified, everything has been stripped down, if you will, and that the focus is maybe where it should have been, maybe back on God rather than on the people. And so one thing that thought was interesting is looking at the words that are translated for these musical instruments. Obviously, when it says harp and stringed instruments and tambourines and whatever a sistrum is and a cymbal, we really don't know for certain if those were the correct names of instruments. If when we hear a harp and picture in our mind, that harp thing with the strings, was it the same instrument they're talking here? We really don't know because we don't have those records. There wasn't a dictionary of all the musical instruments. People had many different things that maybe aren't even were associated with our culture right now. But the one I want to look at here is this what's translated as systrums. It's quite a long word. The vav here is the conjunction meaning and, but it's a vim na'anim. And so let's open that up and see what it talks about. Give us any clue here. It obviously is only used one time in the Bible, which again is a very interesting clue. And they say probably. So, which means they really don't know. They're just kind of guessing. They think it was a musical rattle. But then if we go down here into the Brown Driver Briggs Concordance here, it talks about a relationship that they found that this instrument, whatever it was really like, was used much in Egypt. They describe it as a small metal frame with loose metal bars carrying loose rings and swung or shaken in the hand. But what I found interesting here is this instrument was used much in Egypt. And that just resonated with me as to, okay, this is something that was brought out of a culture not associated with worship of God. And maybe this is just a key here showing what kind of crowd this had. I won't maybe use the word changed into, that maybe the musical instruments and all that was going on there were coming from sources that God just could not be praised with, that God could not be blessed with. And so this scene is being set up here. And of course, it ends in disaster. We get to verse 6, and it says, they came to the threshing floor. Um, where again the wording is very interesting. I'm going to read it as it has been translated, as you'll see it in the King James, as you'll see it even in the Hebrew Bible, that they came to Nachon's threshing floor. Uzzah put out his hand to the ark of God and took hold of it, for stumbled the oxen. Now you'll notice that the word sequence is very different in Hebrew. Again, that's a difference of Hebrew rather than English. English, you gain an understanding of what's happening and what the possession is, what's shaking, who's doing what, who's stumbling. You get those because of the word sequence. In Hebrew, it's very different. The word sequence doesn't mean as much. What does matter is the noun, number and gender. Every word has a gender to it, masculine or feminine, and every word has a number to it, meaning singular or plural or so forth. And so that's where you get the connection. So let's just take a look at this. And what I see interesting here and what stuck out is it's translated the Gorin, which is the threshing floor, but then it goes to Nakon's threshing floor. Well, why did they repeat threshing floor twice? So let's look up Nakon. And of course, this is another word that's used only once in the Bible, which makes it challenging to find some good understanding of. Here they say it's a proper name, it's somebody's name. I took a look in the Jastro's Targumim of Aramaic, which is a language that is a sister language to Hebrew. It is what the Aramaic Targums are written, which are the translations into Aramaic, because that was the language of the time when Jesus walked upon the earth. And what I find is here is the word nakon, not translated as a name, but translated as to be firm, to be ready. And I found that was kind of interesting. So I tried to insert that translation here that they were coming from this, hit this threshing floor, which the word floor just means kind of again, it's an unused word. It's an open area. And why did they stumble? Why were they driving through a threshing floor? All of this is just very strange. And the word Nakor also is very similar to the word Nakon is very similar to the word Nakor, which is the word for striking, is striking with the hand. And so I'm looking at what possibly happened to the ark and how did Uzzah interact with the ark? What was he doing? And try to put this together because obviously he lost his life because of it, which we're going to find out. And so I see this word Nakor being something that's a very rash, very strong armed type of movement. And that fits in with this next word here of Vayishalach. And here you see the word shalach, which is to put out or to send in a way. So Uzzah is reaching out and using a strong arm. And it's not just a light touch, it's a striking almost. And he strikes, and we're trying to get the sequence. Okay, what really happened to cause him to do that? Was there a cause? And then it says El Aron to the ark Ha Elohim. And again, here using the Elohim, not the Yahweh. So we see something changing in the understanding of what was going on here. The merciful, compassionate realm of God is not being spoken about, but the more of the retaliatory, of the judgmental, of the punishment side of God is being spoken about, the strong force of God. And Vayochaz, he took hold of. Let's see what that word has. Again, talks about take hold, take possession of. It's a really strong words that are being used for his action. And then it's the sequence is split up in these words, just you're trying to picture what's happening here. And it took hold of it. He, bo key, and it says that the oxen stumbled. Well, where are they going and why did the oxen stumble? And again, here when I look up the word, it says nothing about stumble. It says that it was going to drop. Stumble isn't even a translatable possibility here. It's shamat, it's to let drop. And so why was this cart with the ark of God being let, why was it dropping? You would think they would be on a nice smooth road that people travel all the time. Um, Dozens of wagons pass through this every day. Nobody falls off their wagon. Nobody crashes their wagon. Why is it suddenly that the Ark of God is on it and suddenly it crashes? It drops. And so something is being done very inappropriately here. Was it because their crowd was so rambunctious, so raucous, that things were just getting out of hand because of the music and 30,000 people clamoring around it? Was it being pushed? Were the oxen being distracted by all the people and all the noise, and that they were starting to, get out of control? I really don't know, but I know there's more here than what we really can understand, but there's little glimpses of this, that this was not a situation that God approved of. And it was more than just traveling on the ark or traveling on the cart, because this ark had traveled on carts before. It had been touched before. It had been looked at before, and people had done it without being struck down. Why was Uzzah struck down? So we're going to look into more of that next week, hopefully. And I just wanted to just show you again the beauty that we have of taking the Hebrew language and looking into a little bit deeper and trying to find out, are there meanings that perhaps we can glean a little bit better understanding of. And I think when it comes to this part of it, my understanding is becoming a little bit more enlightened, that this was a crowd of people with a lot of musical instruments doing a lot of things that was getting out of hand, and it was causing this occasion to happen here where it was just out of control. And so some of them are going to pay for it, and unfortunately, Uzzah will pay for it with his life. And we'll pick up with that next time. So God bless you. Thanks again for listening, and I pray that you are blessed and encouraged through all this study of God's Word. Take care. Bye bye.